Alright, so to get started, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to want to download this photo and open it up in Gimp. I've come to find that with DeviantArt, the easiest way to open up this image full scale, complete sizing and whatnot is just by right clicking on download image right here and click copy link location. Of course, I'm using Firefox, so it might be different terminology depending on what browser you're using. But then you just go over to Gimp and you click File, Open Location, and if you just paste the URL that you copied and click Open, what will happen is Gimp will go ahead and just download the image and open it up. It's pretty handy. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get our actual model in this image and start combining them together. So let's go ahead and do that. So click File, Open as Layers, and we're just going to go ahead and open up that image, which I believe I have it right here. There it is. So you click Open, and in my case, I actually opened it up as an XCF file. So this is the final image I created of this image earlier. And as you can see, it was made up of three layers in total. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put those in a layer group. And that should make it a little bit easier for me to manage that later. Alright, I went ahead and added them to a layer group so that they're all bunched together for ease of use. Now, I would have shown you how to do that, but my recording software won't let me do it. If you don't already know, all you have to do is click on a layer, drag it, and drop it inside of a group, and it will automatically be added to that group. To add a layer group, you just right click and you click New Layer Group. So there we go. So now that we have our image, we're going to compose it and figure out exactly where we want to put it so that it looks right. And what you want to do is you want to kind of look at the trees and kind of use the trees as reference to kind of make sure that your model doesn't look really big or your trees don't look really big. You want to make sure that they look like they're the appropriate size. So to do that, we're just going to go ahead and click on our scale tool right here. And we're actually going to scale our model down because I think the model looks pretty big compared to the trees. And if you click on the chain link right here, it will actually keep the ratio locked so that you don't end up with a goofy looking image. And then I'm just going to go ahead and hide that layer group in the background so I can kind of see the preview a little better. And I'm also going to go down and adjust my image opacity on the scale tool down so that I can clearly see what's going on behind the image at the same time. And then turn the opacity back up a little bit so I can see a little better. And I'm going to try to just kind of get her right over on the right side. And that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and click Scale. It'll go through, it'll scale all of the layers and layer masks in that group. And then we'll unhide that layer, and there we go. So that's a little better. Now we just need to adjust her position somewhere that looks real. And that looks pretty good. So now just click on the crop tool, and we're just going to go ahead and crop all of this extra junk that we don't need. Like so, and then hit enter. And now we have our composition as we want it. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to remove this background, this black background from our model's layer so that it, actually looks like she's in the image. And in order to do that, we need to actually merge this layer group together in a single group and also then use a layer mask to get rid of this black background. I don't like to ever remove information, so before I actually merge this group together, I'm actually going to duplicate this group, and then I'm going to hide the original, move it underneath of my background so it's out of my way, and then I'm going to merge my newly duplicated group. So now I have a single image here that we can put a layer mask on. Hopefully sometime in the near future Gimp will actually put layer masking on groups, and when they do we'll be able to just add a layer mask to this group directly. But for now we can't really do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to right click on our layer and we're going to click add layer mask, and we're going to click grayscale copy of layer and click add. Now what happens is it creates this creepy looking ghostly like effect, which isn't really what we want. But if you right click and you click show layer mask, this is actually what your layer mask looks like, which is an actual duplicate of the original image since it's grayscale copy of layer. Now all we got to do is click colors, levels, and we're just going to try to make this outer edge as bright as possible to try to create our edge so that we don't have to do it on our own. And I'm not really worried about this right side because I'm just going to go through with the paintbrush in a little bit and just fill all that in anyway. So that seemed to work pretty well, so we'll just click OK. And then click on your paintbrush tool and just go ahead and get a relatively hard brush and just kind of rough in this area with white. Alright, now zoom in toward your edge. And finalize the tweak. Brush that. There we go. Just like that. So now if you right click and you uncheck show layer mask, you'll notice that our image is actually isolated from the background perfectly. Okay, so if you've ever actually used a camera, you'll probably know that there's this thing called depth of field. So whenever you take a picture of something with a relatively big aperture or a small aperture number, the background tends to get pretty blurry whenever you focus on an object relatively close to you. So in this case, we're going to try to emulate that. So our background shouldn't be sharp like this. It kind of takes away from the realism. So to fix that, we're just going to click on our background layer and we're going to click filters, blur, Gaussian blur, and we're going to kind of move this over to the edge a little bit so we can kind of see what's going on. There we go. And then just kind of blur it just until, I don't know, maybe 22. See how that looks. Yeah, that looks good. So now our background's out of focus and it really kind of helps draw your eye to the model here. Next up, we need to start actually adding color to our model's image. But before we do that, we want to add the background has this blue hue to it, and we want to make sure that our model also has that matching hue so it looks real. And something else I want to note is that I picked this background because the light source was coming from the left side over to the right side, so it would match my model's lighting. And that's a very important little tip to keep in mind whenever you're doing things like this, is you need to make sure that wherever your light is coming from, that it matches the direction of whatever foreground object you're trying to create, because you know, if we would flip this around and have it the other way, it just wouldn't look real no matter what you do. So, something to keep in mind. So, in order to create this blue hue on our model, we're going to actually right-click on our layer group, and we're going to click duplicate, or our new layer with the model, and click duplicate layer. And the only reason why we duplicated that is because we want to keep this layer mask. So, with our actual layer selected, hit select all, click on your bucket fill tool, and then fill that entire area with a blue color. And then set that layer mode to color. And then, actually that doesn't look very good. So let's actually click on our background layer, click on the color picker, and just pick an actual color, a blue color in the background, and then use that on our layer. That looks a little better. Maybe hue would look better. No, it's definitely gotta be color. Okay. So keep on tweaking with that until you find something you like. Try clicking colors, hue saturation, and then you can just kind of adjust the hue until you get something you like. Maybe turn the saturation down a little bit. I'm not sure. We'll keep messing with it, and maybe we'll get an effect that we like as we move on. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to start actually adding color to this model. Since our photo came in black and white, we're going to have to actually manually add the color back into it. To do that, we're just going to use a series of layers, a series of layer masks, and all of these layers are going to be set to the color mode, or the layer mode color. So let's get started here. So the first thing you do is you right click and you click new layer. Just leave it on transparency and click OK. And we're going to start by coloring her actual shirt here. And to do that, we're just going to pick a color and fill in this entire layer with that color. Get on your bucket fill tool, fill in that color, set the color layer mode to color. And then right click on that layer and add a layer mask. Set it to black full transparency and click add. So now if you have a Wacom tablet, this is a great time to use it. If not, that's okay. You can still just use your mouse and use the brush in that way. So we're going to zoom into our actual shirt, and then on the layer mask we're going to just start coloring in the color white. Kind of like a coloring book, really. You just kind of add the color to the image. And pan over, switch over to the color black, and kind of just remove that extra. Actually, something that might help here is if you right click on your actual layer mask on the one from your actual model, and you click mask to selection, what it's going to do is it's going to actually turn your layer mask into a selection so that you can't go outside of the lines, essentially. So if I colored black, you see what I mean? It's not going over the shoulder. Now it's still getting into her hair and onto her arm, but it still makes it a little bit easier to not have to necessarily worry about that one edge. So now we're just going to paint all of that back in. And there we go. Now if you zoom back out, there we go. And then, notice that there's a spot missing here in between the hair. And to get that, we'll just go ahead and get our brush back out, scale the brush down, fill that in. Don't worry about how colorful it is yet, just focus on what color you want it to be. And you can go back and always tweak how colorful it is just by adjusting the opacity later. Okay. So that takes care of that. We're going to essentially just repeat the process on every other element of the body, and then just go through and adjust the opacity as needed. Oh, one thing that you want to know is you want to make sure that all of these color layer modes are underneath of the blue layer that we created earlier, so that that blue still kind of applies. And we're probably going to end up pulling the color layer mode back. Yeah, let's do that. So you pull this back. So now this green still looks green, it still looks like it's in color, but our blue is still coming through to make sure that everything on our image looks like it's still nighttime. So from there we're going to go ahead and continue coloring. Okay, next up we're going to color the skin on her arm and her face. This is going to be one of several layers on the skin because we're going to have to use more than one layer to kind of emulate the look of skin. You know, skin isn't just a single color. It's got some pink in it, and it's got, you know, the lips are a little bit of a different color, and a couple other things like that. So, but first we're going to add what I like to call the base layer, which is the first layer of skin. And to do that, we're just going to right click and click New Layer, set it to Transparency just like we did before, set the layer mode to Color, click on our Bucket Fill tool, and pick a relatively fleshy kind of color, and it's somewhere in the yellow range, and then fill it in. And that looks pretty yellow. So let's maybe pull into a little more orange. Oh, there we go. We can work with that for now. Let's focus on adding the layer mask first. So right click and click Add Layer Mask and set it to Black Full Transparency. And we'll go ahead and start adding the layer mask. And then after that, we'll go ahead and we'll actually tweak the color of this color layer until we get a color that we're happy with. The nice thing about editing your photos this way is you can just kind of build the structure and then just start adjusting everything. You can adjust the color really easily. You can adjust how colorful it is really easily. Everything is right there, just a couple clicks away. So the first thing we're doing is just, like I said, getting that structure in. So again, if you have a Wacom tablet, go ahead and start coloring her face in. Don't color the lips, color around the lips, because we're going to color those a different color later. And also try to avoid getting into the hair too much, and go around the eyes. It's going to look kind of like an Oompa Loompa at first, but that's okay. We'll tweak the color and make it a little better here soon. Right. Color up in there. Get some of this area. That eyelid. Okay. Now zoom out and then zoom back in onto the arm down here and just do the same thing. And again, as I mentioned before, if you right click on your layer, your models layer, and click Mask to Selection, that will give you an edge so you don't have to worry about over coloring. Oops. Make sure you're coloring on the right layer. And color on white. Here we go. Yeah, it's definitely going to have to be a lot more pink. Now zoom out. And bravo, we've created an Oompa Loompa. So to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to actually click on the color of our layer, like our actual layer itself. And then just click Colors, Hue Saturation, and we're just going to adjust the hue until it gives us something that we like. Maybe that's pretty close. Just a little bit more flesh. That's pretty good. We'll work with that for now. And then if we ever need to adjust it, we can always come back and do it later. So next up, we're going to go ahead and start working on the lips, and then probably the eyes afterward. Okay, to do the lips, we're going to repeat the process that we've been doing all along. Create a new layer, set it to transparency, fill it in with a red color. And from what I've come to learn, a great way to get lips is to actually just click on the color that you originally used and then just pull the hue down a little bit into the red. And that will usually give you a really accurate lip color. So just fill in your entire layer with that color and then set the layer mode to color. I feel like I'm saying color every other word. And then click Add Layer Mask, set it to Black Full Transparency, and click Add. Zoom into our lips, get your Wacom tablet out and brush white on the lips. Here we go. You'll notice there's a little gray spot there. I don't know if that's the lip or not, but I don't think it is. So I'm going to actually switch over to my skin layer and just fill that in with skin color. And just kind of soften in some of these areas around in here on our lips just to get rid of some of that gray area. Here we go. Now if you zoom back out, you'll see that our lips are pretty accurate. So now let's go ahead and, before we do the eyes, let's go ahead and whiten up these teeth a bit. So just right click, create another new layer, hit OK, reset your colors, click on your bucket fill tool and fill it in with the color white. Set the layer mode to overlay, and then right click on that layer and click add layer mask, set it to black, click add, get your tablet out and brush in the teeth. And we're just going to kind of whiten them a little bit here. That's all we're doing. Setting it to overlay and filling in with the color white automatically tells Gimp that we want everything that we're about to brush to be brighter. And if you've read my layer modes or layers ebook, you would have a pretty good understanding on that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and, you know what, before we, let's hold off. Let's do the eyes last. Let's go ahead and fill in the hair and the headpiece. Alright, next up is our hair. To do that, we're just going to essentially repeat the process that we've been doing all along. Right click, click new layer, transparency, bucket fill, select a color. This time we're going to pick a more goldeny brown color. Fill it in. Oh, oops. Make sure you click select none before you try to do that. There we go. And the reason why you've got that goofy looking silhouette there is because of the blue layer above it. But go ahead and just set it to the layer color. And then right click on it and click add layer mask, set it to black full transparency and click add. And then get your brush tool out. Zoom in on the hair. And just so you guys know, this looks pretty funny right now. The image as a whole, that is. Her face, the color, the effect that it's creating, it doesn't look right. But that's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to actually go through and adjust the opacity on all of these images to reduce the color a lot. And that will actually make it look much more convincing and a lot better than it looks right now. So if you're kind of skeptical on this effect and how it's going to look, stay with me, because it'll get a lot better. Carefully color on that strand there. There we go. And then now you'll notice that we've missed some spots on our skin layer. So we'll just go ahead and go back and fill those in. And the nice thing is, since our skin layer is underneath of our hair layer, we don't really have to worry too much about going over the lines. So just kind of color it all. Color away. Okay, so now if we zoom back out, her bangs are now colored in. We just have to get the hair that sticks out of the bottom of the headpiece. So, just, oops, wrong layer. Make sure you're on your golden hair layer and brush it in. Now this does matter because this layer is above it, so you have to make sure to be careful on getting the hair and not accidentally getting the clothes. So scale your brush down. Just kind of go through there and just rough it in for now, because what we'll do is we'll just zoom in, switch our brush over to the color white, and just kind of get rid of wherever it shouldn't be, like so. And again, if it looks weird, that's okay. It won't for long once we remove some of this brightness. Okay, so now we just got to color in our headpiece. So let's go ahead and right click and create another new layer. Hit OK. Set the layer mode to color. And I actually would like it to be brown as well. So we'll go ahead and just remove some of the hue there, fill it in, right click, add a layer mask, set it to black full transparency, click add, and now we're just going to again brush in the color of the headpiece and the color white. Make sure you don't get the hair. Oh, and this is again one of those times where it would be nice to right click on your models layer and click mask to selection so that you have an edge that you don't have to worry about going beyond. And just brush away. Now, here in a little bit, we're going to get into the eye. The eye is where things get kind of interesting because there's, I don't know if you've ever seen my editing eyes using Gimp tutorial, but it's pretty detailed, and it, you know, I really like to stress the eyes because I think that's the most prominent feature on a person's face. So we're gonna have some fun with those. So just keep on coloring. There we go. Zoom out. Okay, so next up is the eyes. Right. So zoom into our eyes, right click and click new layer, set it to transparency, and again fill it in. This time we're going to actually be filling in the iris so that we can create some color in that eye. And I'm going to give her blue eyes. So fill it in. Oops. Make sure you have nothing selected. I accidentally have my silhouette selected again. So select all, fill it in, set your layer mode to color, and then right click and click add layer mask, set it to black full transparency and click add. Now just click on your paintbrush tool as usual and just color in the color white and fill those irises in with color. And then make your brush smaller, switch over to the color black, and unfill the pupil because you don't want those pupils to be blue, or the light reflecting off of the pupils to be blue. Okay, now that we've done that, we're going to actually add another layer, and we're going to do something that I like to do to help make these eyes pop out a little more. And what it is if you make the area around the iris black, it really helps make these eyes pop out. So just right click and click new layer, set it to transparency. Oops. Fill that layer with the color black. Set it, this time we're going to set the layer mode to overlay. Right click on that layer and add a layer mask. Click black full transparency and click add. Now just click on the ellipse, I'm sorry, what are they? There we go. The ellipse select tool, and just roughly select the outer rim of the eye. Hit enter, and then click on your paintbrush tool, and using a soft brush, color in the color white around that outer edge of the eye. Just kind of go around like that. You'll notice you can go too far. Just make sure you get rid of that extra stuff that you don't need. And then just go over to the other eye and repeat that process. Get your ellipse tool. Try to get this as close as possible. There we go. Hit enter. Click on your paintbrush tool and make it a little smaller. Color in the color white. And get rid of that extra stuff that you don't want. And zoom out and see how it looks. So here's a before and an after. Just with that alone, it just creates a lot of extra character in the person's eye. Now if you right click and add another layer, we can actually start adding some highlights in the center of the pupil to help pull these eyes out even more. And something I like to do is I really like to add this information and actually add too much of it and just make it overdone and then kind of pull it back from there. Make sure you're selected to none. Fill in that entire layer with the color white. And again, set that layer mode to overlay. And then right click and click add layer mask, black full transparency, click add. And this time we're just going to use our brush and kind of rough it in. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom into our eye, click on our paintbrush tool, color in the color white on our mask, and just kind of color in the area that wasn't darkened up by our iris or by our previous layer. Just kind of go through there. You'll notice I kind of got a little bit of the pupil there, and we don't want to do that, so make sure you go back, switch over to the color black, and unmask some of that area. Do the same thing on this side just in case. Now zoom out and see how it looks. So that's as you can see, this is exactly what I mean. That looks pretty cool, but it's pretty extreme, and we don't really want to go for that necessarily. So we'll pull some of that color back and just kind of make it look a little more real. There we go. And something I also like to do is I'll move my original image up to the top so I can kind of get a before and after. But in this case it won't really work because it's a black and white image. So, okay, so now we have all of our information all here. So all we have to do is just essentially go back and kind of tweak all of these different layers until we massage in how this final image actually looks. Oh yeah, I nearly forgot. We need to add some kind of fleshy tone to this skin to help it look a little better. So to do that, we're just going to, again, create a new layer and do the same thing we've been doing all along. Set it to the layer mode color. And just fill it in with a relatively fleshy pink color. Oh, actually, you could probably just use the same color you used on your lips. And then right click and click add layer mask. Set the layer mask to black full transparency and click add. Click on your paintbrush tool, switch over to black and white, and just color in on the color white, kind of on her cheeks a little bit. And this doesn't have to be perfect because what we're going to do is we're going to come back with a smudge tool and we're going to actually correct it. So just kind of do the doll face, rosy red cheeks thing. And then after you do that, click on the smudge tool right here, or just click S, which is a shortcut for that, and just kind of start smudging in this information so that it doesn't look so, well, fake. And just like everything else, this is the amount of color and how visible this pink is going to decrease as well. So that looks pretty good. And then one more thing that I want to add before we actually start tweaking the settings is I want to make this, to me this image is kind of, it's supposed to be portraying this person who's just kind of running away. You know, she's scared of something and she's trying to get away from whatever it is. So I'm trying to portray that image, and I would like to think that if you're running out in the woods trying to get away from something, you're probably not getting much sleep. So she should really have some bags under her eyes. So to do that, we're just going to create a new layer, fill it in with the color black, set the layer mode to overlay, right click on that layer and click add layer mask, set it to black full transparency, click add, switch over to our paintbrush tool and brush in that black under her eyes. And these are going to look like bruises at first. Again, we're going to adjust the opacity later. And then just switch over to your smudge tool and just kind of smudge it so it isn't so hard, so it doesn't look so much like a bruise. There you go. Zoom out. And maybe, and you'll see if I adjust this opacity down, it should look quite a bit better. Yeah, see? Okay. All right. So now, for the remainder of this, we're going to spend our time just really fine-tuning everything until we get it to where we really like it. So my first tweak is going to be adjusting the layer mask on our layer that's turning everything this bluish colored hue. See, the thing is light, you know, obviously the brighter something is, the more colorful, the more color information it's going to have. So all of these lighter parts of her face should be colorful, more colorful than the parts on the back side of her face. So in order to emulate that, we're going to actually make use of the information in this actual image and transfer it over to the actual layer mask on our blue color layer. And that doesn't make much sense in words, but I guess if I just show you the steps, it'll make more sense. So the first thing we're going to do is we need this image, the actual model image. So we're going to click duplicate layer, and we're going to go ahead and just move that image to the top just so we can see it. And then we're going to right click on our current layer mask on that duplicated layer and click delete layer mask because we don't want it. We want to replace it with our own. Now right click on our layer and click add layer mask and set it to grayscale copy of layer and click add. What that's going to do is it's going to actually create as I believe I showed you this earlier, it actually turns our layer mask into whatever our image is, only black and white. And with that, we're going to actually just take that information and translate it down to our actual blue color layer. And what it's going to do is, you see the brighter areas of this image are going to stay non-transparent, and the darker areas are going to stay more transparent. So it's going to essentially do exactly what we want it to do if we just take this information and transfer it down to the layer mask on our color layer. To do that, just right click on your layer mask and click mask to selection, hide this layer, and then go down to your blue layer, click on your paintbrush tool, and just brush in the color black. And what that's going to do is it's going to actually take the selection, which is going to be all of that white pixel, and it's going to just add it. And you'll notice that the darker areas are actually less colorful than the lighter areas. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's click mask to selection on our original silhouette. And let's fill it in with the color white. And then again, right click on that layer and click mask to selection again. Let's try a different way, a little bit easier. And just set it to black, your color to black, click on the bucket fill tool and just fill this entire area with the color black. And it should just do the same exact thing. Yes, it did. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and delete that layer because we don't need it anymore. And you'll see that we've essentially created a map of what parts of our image is going to be colorful and what parts of our image is not going to be colorful based on how light or dark the image is, which is exactly what we wanted. So now all we have to do is start adjusting all of our color layers until everything looks like it should. So let's start with the green shirt. We'll go ahead and adjust its opacity down until it comes out as something we're happy with. Now I could just alternatively simply adjust this opacity up on my blue layer, but the thing is that's pretty just universal, so it won't really work that well because, you know, the shirt, for example, it has more color than the skin. So if I turn this up, you know, enough to where the shirt looks okay, the skin's going to look too washed out. So you got to pretty much go through every layer individually and just adjust its color until it looks good. And the skin, try adjusting that down a bit. And then same thing with the red. I think this is my lips. Yeah, naming layers never hurt anybody. I should probably get into the habit of doing that, and honestly, you probably should too. Pull that down. There we go. Pull that color out of that hair a little. And I'm just essentially going through every piece and just pulling about a fourth of the color out, except for those pink highlights. I'm going to turn that down even further for now. Then the eyes, I'm not going to turn them down quite as much because I like to have those pop out. So kind of like that. And then this is your actual, yeah, that's the ring around your eye. And then this is your pockets underneath your eye. So we'll just go ahead and adjust that down just a little bit more. See the result. Okay, so that's starting to look a bit better. Just keep on adjusting until we get what we want. Adjust that down a little further. That looks pretty good. Now we're starting to blend. Okay. And that actually doesn't look too bad right there. That was actually pretty easy. You know, just the key thing here is just take your time. Really just go through and really massage these details in. You know, I mean, I could sit here and nitpick and go through everything that I want to change about this to make it a little bit better. But without boring you to death, it's not really possible. So just kind of, you know, observe the image, adjust all these things till everything looks absolutely perfect, to where you look at it and you can't possibly do anything else. You can't possibly make any further adjustments to the image without making it look worse. So that's it. I hope you liked this tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will be more than happy to help you. Thanks.